Hi, I'm Tim, welcome to our channel, and thanks for logging on. Today we have the unexpected comparison, but an apt one. Rolex Oyster Perpetual 39 versus Sinn 556IB, the B for blue. We've got a combination of Rolex Red Grape and Sinn Blue. Let the games begin. Let's start with the Rolex. Now, the Oyster Perpetual line was redesigned with several different sizes and several different dial colors for 2015. A long-running Rolex series, the Oyster Perpetual is the most direct living descendant in the catalog of the original 1930s Rolex bubble backs, the first oyster-cased perpetual automatic winding Rolex timepieces. Now this one is 39 millimeters, which gives it a more substantial wrist presence than previous Rolex Oysters. 39 millimeters is substantial, putting this watch nearly into Air King and Milgauss territory. You can see on my 16 centimeter circumference wrist, the watch where it's broad and flat. The Rolex Oyster case has never truly been round. It's more of a cushion case profile, and that's really been true since the first Oysters in the 1920s. As you can see, it's a fairly flat case, 11.3 millimeters thick, 39 millimeters in diameter. Obviously, that doesn't include the crown. Two ways to measure this watch. Lug to lug, it measures 47.5 millimeters. If you include the solid end links of the Oyster bracelet, it's a bit more substantial across the wrist. Then it's 49.2. So I can recommend this watch in good conscience for a wrist as small as 13.5 centimeters circumference. It's flat, it's broad, it's planted, and because of the curvature of the Oyster case, it nicely wraps around the edge of the wrist. It's a handsome and classical look. Gerald Genta famously stated that he wished he had designed the Rolex Oyster, which I consider pretty much the ultimate aesthetic compliment for any watch ever. Now, the spacing between the lugs of this one is 20 millimeters, but let's be honest, you're not going to put it on an accessory strap. That said, because of the color of the dial, this one probably has more strap accessory potential than most full bracelet Rolex sports watches. You can see the Oyster bracelet 3-link design features satin finish on the top, a nice taper, polish on the flank. All removable links are fixed by screws. We've got an Oyster clasp here, but it's just a single lift lock. You can see that there is a beak and a hook internally, so this is not a friction fit system. You do have to pull the lift lock trigger to open it. It's nicely finished. Inside you can see it's thoughtfully detailed, but it's also a bit more basic than most Rolex clasps. You can see that there are divots drilled internally, so you have the ability to change the anchoring point of the bracelet and the clasp, but for this $5,700 entry-level Rolex, you do not get the EasyLink 5mm adjustment system. You're going to have to do it with the divots in the clasp and the removable links. Now, it is quite secure when closed. You can also see another hallmark, almost literally, of an entry-level Rolex. You feature an embossed crown rather than a relieved, raised, polished crown. That's the distinction right there. Now, jump into the case. This is iconic Rolex, tapered, fluid, sensuous, sinuous, compound curved, and anything but the Rolex GMT and Submariner Supercase profile. This has a lot of grace. It's handsome, it's elegant, and it makes this sports watch with its crazy red grape dial equally viable as your Rolex dress watch. The bezel is a lovely domed profile rather than the flat conical shape used on many Rolex steel sports watches with fixed bezels. I like the domed profile. It does draw a little bit of a historical comparison to the profile of the bubble backs, as they almost invariably use domed bezels. The dial is nicely balanced. As you can see, red grape. It is a sunburst metallic red grape. It's somewhere between fuchsia and burgundy. All of the indices are white gold, and you can see there's a shock of true crimson red outboard of each index. There are dominant indices at 9, 3, and 6, fully loomed, and applied white gold Rolex coronet, not a printed coronet, up at 12 o'clock, and white gold hands at center. Now, of course, the movement automatic winding Rolex manufacturer, 48-hour power reserve, 28.8 beat rate, 31 joules. This one features a full balance bridge, a free sprung balance for shock resistance, and overcoil hairspring to help the watch earn its COSC chronometer certification by keeping good time in any orientation. That's what a handmade Breguet overcoil does for you. But the hairspring is also Parachrom Blue, a blue oxidized niobium zirconium anti-magnetic alloy of Rolex's own fabrication and composition. So it's an anti-magnetic watch. Screw down crown Rolex twin lock, 100 meters water resistant. It features a stop seconds function, and the timepiece is versatile, handsome, and yes, if you want to dare a little bit less, there are more conventional dials, but go full grape if you're going for the Oyster Perpetual 39. I certainly would, and I'm more of a blue-green dial guy. That's how good that dial is. 2015, we saw a new Oyster Perpetual family. 2016, 16, we saw a new Sinn 556 family improved with metallic dials and applique indices. The 556 gained another upgrade in 2007, or 17 I should say, with this lush blue metallic dial. Now I'm going to throw the watch on the wrist. It is a lovely 38.5mm stainless steel all-arounder. A no date like the Oyster Perpetual, it has a distinctly different look on the wrist because its profile is more sporting, more aggressive, a little bit more German, or at least more Sinn. You can see on my 16cm circumference wrist how the watch wears. The real difference between the two is that the Sinn is just fractionally thinner at 11mm on the nose, and it's considerably more compact across the wrist, measuring 45.7mm lug-to-lug rather than the 49.2 you get with the solid end links of the Rolex bracelet. The spacing between the lugs is 20mm, so you can accessorize this one too. It just is probably better suited for it because it has the strap tool apertures in the lugs. 38.5mm, it's a bit smaller than the Rolex, but it doesn't look it because of the way the crown guard profile enhances the appearance and apparent size of the case. Stainless steel, all of satin finish, it's got a different look than the satin and polished Rolex. Jumping to the bracelet profile, this is where I expected Rolex to open a big gap, but in fact Sinn really holds its own. The bracelet is massively constructed. There are two different bracelets you can order with this watch. One of them is more of a small link mesh design, think Breitling Navitimer bracelet, and you get the basic idea. This is a large link design. It's chunky, it's satin finished, and as you can see, the removable links are fixed by hex screws. This thing is built military grade, and the clasp, although a stamped design, is very solid. There's a lot of material here. It features a secure clamshell closure, engraved Sinn logo. The clamshell has a wonderfully sharp snap to it, and when you get inside the clasp, you realize that the swing arm of the deployant is actually a machined set of components rather than a stamped assembly in its own right. There are 3 different anchoring points inside the clasp, so like the Rolex, you can change the anchoring point of the bracelet for fine tuning, but the watch also features an all-out dive style extension that you can use to get an enormous amount of extra length for use over a coat, a jacket, or heck, for diving purposes, even a dive suit. The watch is 200 meters water resistant, so you do have real aquatic capability and competence here. You can see that the case band is not quite as elegant as that of the Rolex, and I'll show them side by side for emphasis. The Rolex is a bit more of a dress case. It's a genteel thing from a bygone era, whereas the Sinn is more expressly a tool watch. All of satin finish, its side is sheer, and you can see it does just drop off quite vertically. The satin finish is longitudinal. The lugs themselves are actually quite nicely tapered and spare. They're slim and almost elegant, and this is most unexpected. So there is a bit of grace in this blockish case, and you can see that the bezel itself is far more severe than the dome of the Rolex, with a little bit of a vertical component and a satin finish, and then there's a conical component that also features a circular satin finish. The watch features a Sunburst Dial. Again, this was new for the redesign of the 556 back in 2016. The blue was new for 2017. All applique indices, and you can see a paucity of printing. Sinn, automatic with a K, made in Germany, and that's all she or he wrote. Far preferable to the book that Rolex places even on its entry-level models. Not necessary. Advantage Sinn. Now this is a more legible watch day or night. You can also see it's a more durable watch, 200 meters water resistant with the crown guard, and you get to see that for which you've paid. No, it's not a remarkable movement, but the ETA 2824, and it is a real ETA, not a Solida, is nicely executed. Blued screws, a golden Côte de Genève style, or striped, I should say, Sinn winding mass. 28.8 beat rate, 25 joules. It features a stop seconds function. It also features a 38-hour power reserve and that 200-meter water resistance. What's interesting here is that when you stop the balance, you can see that Sinn ordered either a chronometer grade of 2824 or a top grade, one of the 2 highest grades, because it uses a splayed spoke balance, not a straight spoke balance. And of course, with Electron, you can adjust these 2824s quite precisely, even in their most elementary specification, which this watch is not. So technically impressive in a way I didn't expect it to be. This Sinn is the total package, and very tough. Once again, if you want to fit a strap, you do have those apertures for your strap tool, and I sense the kind of guy who would buy this watch already has strap tools at home, as well as a number of candidate straps. So let's talk about our advantages. The Rolex. Okay, first things first, you can still buy both these watches new, but the Rolex comes with a 5-year warranty. The Sinn, 2 years. Let's talk about Chronometric Precision. The Sinn does have a higher grade of ETA than I expected, but the Rolex is not just a COSC chronometer. Rolex guarantees precision of -2 + 2 seconds per day, or they will warranty the watch for 5 years. That's impressive, and that's a mark of distinction that the Sinn cannot match. Let's talk about case elegance. Although the Rolex is fractionally thicker, it doesn't look it. The mid-case is thin, slender, slinky, and graceful in a way the rather blockish and vertical squared-off Sinn case is not. So on the basis of elegance, advantage Rolex. Power reserve. Though this Rolex is anything but a power reserve Olympian, 48 hours versus 38 hours is a significant percent difference. Let's talk about dial options. You have several different color options, including conventional white and black dials with the Oyster Perpetual 39. You also have several different Oyster Perpetual case sizes. You can get the traditional 36, you can get a 34, you can get a downright tiny case for a lady. So you can still get this basic model in many dial designs and many case sizes. So in terms of shopping options, advantage Rolex. Wrist presence. It's a Rolex watch with a far larger footprint. We already explained how the Oyster case looks far larger than it is, and geometrically measuring it, its dimensions are far larger than the Sinn. So not only is it a Rolex with all the pomp and circumstance that entails, but it is just a physically bigger watch on the wrist. There is that brand prestige. To some folks, the Rolex name makes all the difference. There is a measure of horological integrity to that movement, that warranty, that chronometric precision guarantee. So it's not just a matter of name. There is something to be said, though, for owning a Rolex watch for those who are status conscious or want the most name brand for their money. And for $5,700, this watch allows you to rub elbows with the like of Patek Philippe and Richard Mille on equal terms. Again, that's real value, even if I'm not totally into that end of the luxury hobby. Let's talk about the Sinn. Okay, this is not the one to make the snob appeal. This is for you hardcore tool watch enthusiasts. The display caseback for you hardcore mechanical watch enthusiasts. It's nice to be able to see your movement. Even if it's basic, you can hear the heartbeat, why not see it? So display caseback, advantage Sinn. 200 meters of water resistant versus 100. Are you going to swim to either of those depths? Probably not, but if you want to wait 3 or so years between services rather than have your watch water tested every year, it does help to have a little bit of extra margin for error as your watch ages. 100 quickly becomes 50, which quickly becomes 30. 200 becomes 100, becomes 50 over time. So just a little bit more peace of mind with the 200 meter watch, and the crown guard profile to protect the crown. So a bit tougher, this watch. Let's talk about clasp quality. When I realized it was a stamped clasp, I didn't expect to be awarding any accolades to the Sinn, but it's so solid that I deduct no points for this being a stamped unit. And you have the 3 different anchoring points internally, plus the fold-out extension. That's a feature the Rolex lacks. In fact, you'll have to go full Submariner to get that kind of functionality on a Rolex watch. The bracelet. I expected the Rolex to run away in the bracelet quality stakes. Here, the bracelet both looks and feels just as tough, durable, and redoubtable as the Rolex Oyster bracelet. I might even say it's a bit more so. Let's talk about value, new or used, with the Sinn. What do these cost pre-owned? Between $1,000 and $1,250. What do they cost to buy? How about $1,470? So not only are they cheap to buy new or used relative to other luxury watches like the Rolex, but they retain their value surprisingly well for a bit of a niche brand. Finally, let's talk about day or night legibility. The Sinn is easier to read in any light, extreme light or no light. It's simply an easier watch to use as a watch. And I'm going to give one more mark of distinction to the Sinn, and that's a cleaner dial design. Sinn, automatic, made in Germany, versus Rolex Oyster Perpetual, superlative chronometer, officially certified, Swiss made. And that's a relatively spare Rolex dial. So which one do I go for? I go with the Sinn. It has a style that I like. It's tough, it's rugged, but at 38.5 millimeters and satin finished, it's not overblown. The dial is handsome, it's vibrant, it's charming, it's clever, it's fun, and it's a German watch that cracks a metaphorical smile. It has high style, but it also has substance, highly water resistant, very tough, a high grade of movement with a bracelet fit to anchor a battleship, a clasp for the ages, especially considering the price, and ultimately value. You can get this watch pre-owned for as little as $1,000, and I simply can't beat that. The Rolex new for $5,700 sells pre-owned for about $5,200 to $5,500, so on that basis, advantage Sinn. Sinn is in for this comparison. The victory goes to Frankfurt. Do you prefer Frankfurt or Geneva? Guys, let me know in the comments below. Rolex on the right, and then the Sinn. Rolex, Sinn. Sinn wins.